But remember, the best diversity, and I think one of the reasons why we see more and more food intolerances and food issues in people today has a lot more to do with the chemicals we're putting in food, the chemicals we're putting growing food with, the way we've genetically manipulated our food, the way we have gravitated as a society toward fixing our health issues with artificial chemicals and drugs instead of addressing our own behaviors and our own choices. And so we see people that are less resilient. We see GI tracts that are less resilient because remember, at the end of the day, one of the things that your gut is designed to do, so we look at your GI tract, right? It's a tube that goes through your body. And so, again, this is not done to scale or anatomical accuracy, but your gut is an opening, right? It's a tube. And so food comes in and waste goes out. And so there we go. Waste goes out, but this tube that is your gut, right, from your mouth to your anus, is a quarantine zone. What's its function? Its function is to take and extrapolate out the good from the bad. So it doesn't matter what we eat. Plants, remember I said earlier, oxalates are chemicals that plants produce in order to protect themselves from insects, from predators. They use it to grow a structure. So those things might not be the best for humans to consume, especially not in high quantities. But the purpose of this gut, if it's healthy, okay, big key terminology here, if healthy, right, is that it's going to be able to pull out oxalate. It's going to be able to pull out gluten, lectin, abnormal bacteria, parasitic microorganisms, okay? All different kinds of things, the chemicals, etc. If your gut is healthy, it's going to be able to take these things. It's going to be able to use mucus and secretory IgA, different types of antibodies. It's going to be able to handcuff them or bind onto them so that the things that are coming out as waste, right, are these things. And it's going to keep, your GI tract is going to keep the vitamins, the minerals, the carbs, the fats, the proteins or amino acids in the simple sugars and the important essential fatty acids. It's going to be able to hang on to those things to give your body the essential nutrients that it needs to nourish it. And so where people generally get in trouble is they wreck this area. Like they just don't treat it right. They do things like eat ultra processed foods. They do things like eat foods that they shouldn't eat. They do things like take drugs that damage the GI tract to suppress symptoms because they're not willing to change their behaviors. And so what happens is this all catches up to you at a certain point, and then the trend is that it becomes almost as if you can't eat anything because no matter what you do, your body doesn't react very well to it because your gut is completely broken, unhealthy, and not working to do this job very well. And so the whole name of the game is if you want more diversity back in your diet, if you want to add that diversity back in, you have to take care of your quarantine zone. You have to take care of your GI tract so that it works and functions for you as opposed to against you. So very, very important that you understand that concept. Because again, what I don't want anybody to walk away from this show tonight thinking, oh my gosh, Dr. Osborne just wants me to take out even more foods so I have less and less and less options, and I don't want you to feel like that's the case. So this next slide I'm going to show you is just some kind of general, it's a little complex, it's a little complicated, but here in the middle is oxalate, okay? And so what we can see happen, all these different chemicals that are surrounding this, Remember I told you earlier that mold or yeast overgrowth can contribute to oxalate formation because yeast has an enzyme called collagenase that can convert certain amino acids into precursors that help your body to produce oxalate. So if you've got candida overgrowth, it increases your risk for higher levels of oxidate. That's what this here is also referring to, that fungus piece. Okay, but then you also have up here, you can see vitamin B6. Vitamin B6 helps to take one of those chemicals in your body that would make oxalate, and it helps to get rid of it by making glycine, which is an amino acid that can help you. It can help with your DNA and your RNA repair. So low levels of vitamin B6 can contribute to elevations in oxalate because it reduces your body's ability to properly metabolize. Now, some people also, I wanted to bring this up because this is a question that sometimes comes in. Ascorbate. What is ascorbate? Ascorbate is vitamin C in a nutshell. I mean, it's not what some people would call whole food-based vitamin C, but ascorbic acid, for all intents and purposes, orthomolecularly speaking, is vitamin C. And so if you're taking high doses of vitamin C, and this is extremely rare in my experience, because I use vitamin C a lot therapeutically with people, but if you're taking high doses of vitamin C, some people with oxalate toxicity, you can see that pathway, can lead to oxalate formation. So some people, when they don't do well with vitamin C, so if you're one of them, if you've ever taken high doses of vitamin C and you don't feel well, or you don't feel as good, but you're so bent on wanting to take vitamin C because you've heard, vitamin C is so healthy, it's so good for me, but every time you try to take it, you just feel worse, then you might want to consider that you've got a problem with oxalate toxicity, and that's why that vitamin C can drive that problem. Most people tolerate vitamin C perfectly well, but people with oxalate toxicity generally tend not to. So if you're finding yourself, when you're trying to use megadosing vitamin C, and you struggle and you feel worse, that could potentially be one of the reasons why that happens to you. Now, this is a lot less common with oral vitamin C, and a lot more common with IV or intravenous infusions of vitamin C. We'll see this problem occur a lot easier with the IV vitamin C. It's because with IV vitamin C, you can get your levels up super high, super fast, whereas with oral, we're limited on how much the GI tract can absorb, in a bolus or in a dose. So again, point being, if you've got a negative effect or negative impact when you take vitamin C, you might consider an oxalate toxicity issue. Now, what can we do supplementally? What are some things that we can do if we suspect oxalate toxicity? Maybe you go to your doctor and you've got, again, you've done some tests where you've got confirmation that you're producing abundance of oxalates and that your body or your system is overloaded or overburdened. There are a few different things that can be done nutritionally, supplementally. One is making sure that your B6 status is adequate. So you want to make sure B6 status is okay, right? Is in a good place. Number two, you want to look at what can bind to oxalate. Especially, there's something called oxalate dumping, which is when you go oxalate free, what happens initially is you feel better, but within a few weeks, your body starts dumping all that stored oxalate, and you can really actually feel worse for a time. But one of the things that some people find very helpful is taking calcium and magnesium. So if we're looking at like a combination CalMag, right? So CalMag can be very beneficial. So like a supplement where you're, approximately 1,000 milligrams of calcium and somewhere around 600 to 800 milligrams of magnesium. Okay, so something like this, because why? Because calcium and magnesium will bind to the oxalate and prevent that. Remember, they're crystals, and so it can bind to those, and it can help prevent them from depositing into your tissue as aggressively. One of the other things that people have reported to find beneficial is glucosamine and chondroitin. So, those supplements that some people take to collectively improve joint pain. This is actually one of the reasons why it can be effective, is that glucosamine chondroitin can minimize joint pain for several reasons, but one of the reasons is because it binds oxalate and can help to somewhat reduce oxalate. Something else that can be helpful is citrus, but particularly citrus juice. The acidity, the nature of citrus juice can break down oxalate and help your body excrete them out of you a little bit more effectively. So that may be something else that you consider, again, if you're suspecting oxalate as being a major problem. So these are just kind of some simple things that you can do that won't really hurt you. Like you can take B6, very safe to take, calcium and magnesium, very safe to take, glucosamine chondroitin, virtually no known side effects, citrus juice, outside of that, pucker power that you might experience, really no major side effect or issue with taking any of these things. But if you find that you're having an oxalate dumping type of syndrome, these things might be helpful to kind of push you through that and get you on the other side. So all that being said, we covered pretty much everything I wanted to talk about in relationship to oxalate toxicity. So again, the take-home message is, if you've gone gluten-free, if you've gone grain-free, and you're still struggling and you're still not finding that you're improving, if you've been to multiple doctors and you tried multiple supplements and nothing's really working and you still struggle, specifically if you struggle with autoimmune rheumatoid or autoimmune arthritis or something like an interstitial cystitis, like those really are, in my experience, the two big factors that I see when people come to see me that have the oxalate issue or the potential for the oxalate issue. So hopefully that walkaway for you, that take-home message, is really helpful. Hey, don't forget to check out the rest of the series right here. Make sure you hit subscribe below. And as always, thanks for tuning in.